It's the Jack and Nick Horror Show.
Hey everybody, it's New Jersey Nick. This is the Jack and Nick Horror Show. As you might notice, it's just New Jersey Nick tonight. Jack couldn't make it again. We've had a lot of scheduling problems. He's getting screwed by his job. He's working too many hours. It's really uncomfortable for him. You should feel bad for what they're doing to him. Corporate America, they hate you, and they will grind you into dust. So, anyway, regardless, I have just seen Rob Zombie's 31, and I wanted to tell everybody about it. I really think you care. I think you care about this one, so pay attention. I'll give you kind of the hardcore Rob Zombie fans' perspective on whether or not this movie measures up to the rest of his movies or to other horror movies in general. We shall see. But first, I gotta mention Dread Central. Finally, we're going to say something nice about the horror press, but Dread Central, thank you for naming us in your article of 10 podcasts you should follow. 10 horror podcasts you should follow. Came out last week. We're really proud that we got mentioned. Thank you for putting us in. Very cool. So go check that out. There's a link to it on our Facebook page. By the way, on our Facebook page, follow us. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Jack and Nick Show. Follow us on YouTube. You can watch our episodes. We should have new episodes, episodes that you can also hear on iTunes and Stitcher will soon be available on YouTube as well. We'll be cranking those out again. And also, we've got a Tumblr. Hey, wherever you like social media except for Snapchat and Instagram, because I don't know, we're not kids and we don't know how to use those things. We're old men. Deal with it. Come follow us. Let's talk about Rob Zombie's 31. I want to get right into it. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on the movie, share with it briefly, and then move along. Here we go. Is the 7th film from Rob Zombie, of course, one of the most polarizing horror directors out there. This movie is about a group of carnival workers who travel through the country in an RV, and they're on their way to the next venue when they're stopped and attacked. It takes place in the 1970s, as most of his movies do. Most of the cast is full of repeating members like Sherry Moon Zombie, Jeff Daniel Phillips, who was Whitey in Lords of Salem, Meg Foster, who was one of the decrepit witches in the last movie, Lords of Salem, and people like Malcolm McDowell, who I love in everything, all the time. Now, if you followed me and Jack's podcasting before, you know that I'm big into Rob Zombie movies. I've seen, obviously, all of his stuff. I also am really into his music. Going back to White Zombie, my first tape I ever got on cassette was Rob Zombie's Astro Creep 2000. So I've been a fan for a long time of not just his music or his movies, but his artistic aesthetic, I guess you could say. What he puts out into the world, I think, are generally enjoyable things. I am not alone in this, obviously, because there's still thousands of people who go to his concerts every year, and thousands of people who watch his horror movies, for better or worse. And I just enjoy it. I really do. Devil's Rejects is one of, if not my favorite horror movie ever. Like, I absolutely love Devil's Rejects. And I like House of a Thousand Corpses a whole lot. I loved Lords of Salem. I love Halloween 2. Halloween 1 is okay. You know, I mean, I love his movies to varying degrees. Some of them I'm more into than others. I'm just trying to give you all context here for what's about to happen. Because 31, I can tell you, as a guy who really likes Rob Zombie and Rob Zombie movies, this is probably my least favorite. In fact, it has to be my least favorite of his 7 films. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, and I'll kind of explain why, but it's just definitely pretty much what I was expecting when I went into the movie was, this probably isn't going to be that good, and then I saw it, and it wasn't that good. So, let's talk a little about it. So like I said, a group of people go out, they're driving across country, they get stopped by a bunch of crazy people, and they're taken into a factory-like setting where they are then assigned numbers and told to survive through this game, the most dangerous game-style game where they are going to be hunted by crazy clowns. And this happens within like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie. I'm not going to spoil this movie because I know it's only been in limited release. Like, I had actually seen it at an AMC Theaters Fathom Events screening, which, that's like when they screen, like, old movies, they'll have, like, a Fathom Events playing of The Shining, or something like that. And in this case, they were playing Rob Zombie's 31. I don't know that it's been shown much other than that. I think it was shown at either Sundance or something, one of those type of movie festivals, probably Toronto. Not really many places. It'll probably be on DVD and Blu-ray by the end of the year, right? Let's be honest. If they get it out that quickly. I hope that they do, because I hope that everybody who wants to see this at least gets to see it, should they need to. But overall, the movie felt like it was very rushed. Not just in terms of what you're seeing on screen, but in how it was made. There's a lot of shaky cam, to the point where you can't tell what's going on during, well, I mean, I couldn't tell what was going on during a lot of the murder scenes. And, I mean, that kind of bothered me, because it's like, it's supposed to be really visceral and gritty, and I mean, I know that that's an effect that some directors will use to make their movies look visceral and gritty, but it, in this movie, it didn't really add anything. It kind of took away where I was hoping for gore and blood and brutality, and instead I was getting implied stuff that was happening off camera. It was kind of weird. You'd have to see it to understand. But I'm trying to tell you about it. I think 31, man, the best part and the worst part of this movie is probably the characters and the actors playing them. Because in Rob Zombie movies, you always get these really strong character actors. So all the characters feel like really sort of fleshed out. You understand them because the people playing them understand them. I mean, obviously there's people like Sherry Moon Zombie who don't necessarily know how to act. And I don't have a problem with Sherry Moon Zombie. I know that there's a lot of horror fans that are like, oh God, her again. Dude, if you're going to watch a Rob Zombie movie, you're going to see him put his wife in movies. I think it's kind of a throwback idea to the stuff that you saw in the 70s and 80s where people would repeat with the same cast a bunch of times for no reason. And even if they were undeserving or bad actors. And especially if you look at the actresses in the movies from the 70s, they were rarely good. And I know that that's like what he's primarily inspired by, so I'm cool with it. I feel like I have to make this disclaimer every time I talk about a Rob Zombie movie, but I'm totally fine with Sherry Moon Zombie. Anyway, strong actors. Strong character actors being used to bring these characters to life. But I feel like the characters in this movie are not given a lot to do other than like run around chasing one another, hitting each other with sticks and chainsaws and such. Like, it really is more like almost more like a fighting game, a fighting video game. Like, who cares about the story of Mortal Kombat? We just want to see Sub-Zero punch Johnny Cage and, tear out each other's hearts and stuff. That's what this movie was kind of like. It's more, you get about that level of characterization of the characters. I wasn't even really sure what was going on with them. I mean, I'm glad I read a description of the movie here tonight where I could tell you that they were carnies going from place to place, because that little bit is not exactly explained to you in the movie. Like, why are these carnies not with the rest of their carny caravan? Like, where are they going on their own? And I thought that they were like a traveling whorehouse or something because of the way that some of the characters talked. Meg Foster seems to be a madam of some sort, I thought. I don't know. Maybe I just really misread what was going on. But it was, I guess I'll blame myself for that misinterpretation. But you really had, like, great people bringing a lot to this movie. Obviously, Malcolm McDowell, anything he's in, he just can have, like, great scenery-chewing authority that makes you like sit up and pay attention to everything he's doing. And in this movie, he's kind of got like a really minor part where he is a member of the group who is placing bets on the lives of the people in the most dangerous game, this game called 31. We're not even really told why it's called 31. I guess just because it takes place on Halloween, which is the 31st of the month. Real creative there. So the cult is not explained. The cult that is betting on them, they dress really prim and proper, like it's I don't know, like the 1800s or something, and they're satanic. That's what I know about them. That is all that the movie tells you about them. I'm not spoiling anything by telling you this. I'm just telling you these are the characters that we get. Then we get a bunch of crazy clowns, and they'll have cool names like Sex and Death. They travel in a pair, and one of them kills for pleasure, and the other one wants to bring pain. We'll get a group of guys called Psycho Head and Schizo Head, and they're chainsaw-carrying, ugly, filthy clowns. Really crazy stuff. Doomhead. The guy playing Doomhead in this movie, who is almost like a final boss character if this was the fighting game, He's played by Richard Brake, and I didn't recognize him. I recognized his face, but I had no idea what he was from, and I had to look it up on IMDb. He actually plays the Night's King in seasons 4 and 5 of Game of Thrones, so I recognized that scowl on his face, that big frown. Man, every scene with him in this movie as Doomhead is like a revelation. I mean, it is like horror goodness, A+, perfect. I wish that this movie was called Doomhead. I wish that this movie was about Doomhead. I wish that everything in it was just Doomhead, Doomhead, Doomhead. He is not in the movie enough, and he's not given a lot to do, despite being massively built up for parts of this movie. He's the first thing you see on screen, and then he doesn't reappear for 45 minutes. And then he's only there for maybe the last 20 minutes in the movie, and right when you want him to get into the horrors that he is going to commit, you get misdirected and the story kind of meanders around, and you'll see when you see the movie. I mean, I'm not going to spoil that. I'm not going to say who he commits it to, but basically I thought that he was a great character, and I hope that Rob Zombie uses him again in another movie, not necessarily a sequel to 31. I mean, maybe all his movies take place in the same universe, and he just wants to use Doomhead again. That would be extremely welcome. And if not, I hope he uses Richard Brake again, because he's just the best part of this movie. But I mean, really, me saying that he isn't a big enough part of this movie, that goes for all the monsters. They're not monsters, they're just human monsters. People who dress up as killer clowns, right? They each seem like this really cool concept or cool idea that isn't explored, and the promised brutality isn't always delivered on. Very weird, very annoying, and I mean, I really wanted to see more. I just wanted more. I wanted to know more about the traveling caravan and why I'm supposed to care about these characters, even in this setting. I mean, granted, it's a horror movie. Why do you care about characters? But you know what I mean. You want to be able to sit there and root for one side over the other, and I definitely found myself rooting for the killer clowns, but not knowing why, even though only a few of them really look like killer clowns. Also, the movie has somewhat of an ambiguous ending, but it actually kind of gives off the appearance that the movie is largely unfinished, especially if you go back and look at a lot of the concept art that Rob Zombie was releasing about this movie over time. I don't know what the hell a lot of the drawings that came out, the hand-drawn stuff, go out there and Google it. Rob Zombie's 31 concept art, the stuff that he released, a lot of it doesn't correspond to this movie at all. And I don't know if they were just this is what they were going for stylistically initially, and then they figured out that they didn't have the budget, so they didn't go on it. You know what I mean? I don't know, but a lot of that stuff did not end up in the movie. It feels like it could have had another, couple of months of work put on this movie. I mean, there's stuff in it that I really enjoyed. Like I said, Doomhead and the cast and all that stuff. There's a lot of blood and guts. Well, maybe there's not enough blood and guts, but there's blood and guts for sure. But I just felt like it was just so rushed, it was really kind of disappointing. And that's how I would sum up how I felt about 31. Kind of disappointing. Now, granted, I would rather see this movie than any other ghost or possession movie that has come out. I enjoy exploitation cinema at its core. My favorite, subgenre of horror is just absolute exploitation nonsense gore. Give it to me. If dark, gritty, and visceral horror movies like this came out every week, I would go to the movies 52 times a year. I guess I'm that ridiculous, but I would much rather see something like this, even one that I would maybe say is only a C instead of an A+. I would rather go see something like this 100 times before I would go and see, guess who's getting possessed this week? It's another young 20-something girl. Hooray! I find myself not even caring about movies like The Conjuring or the last Insidious movie or a few of the other ones that have come out recently. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not even like I'm saying that they're all bad or they're all trash. I'm just not interested anymore because I feel like horror itself has been so oversaturated with that type of nonsensical movie. I don't care anymore. And that's kind of a bad thing for them. I mean, the same thing kind of happened with slasher movies later on. In the 80s when the 80s turned into the 90s and suddenly we were getting Leprechaun movies and way too many Child's Play movies. And then Child's Play movies somehow got good again. I don't know. That's another episode. So, I would still rather see Rob Zombie's 31 than those movies, just because this fits more my own profile of what I like about horror movies. But overall, man, I just was not too captivated by this movie. I felt it was like good for what it was. I mean, it's probably only about 80 minutes long, and there's some really great stuff in it, but overall, not a whole lot that excited me for those 80 or so minutes that I spent with it. Rob Zombie did do like a pre-taped Q&A thing that they played at the Fathom Events screening that I went to. They played it after the movie. And basically he started talking about how he was making Broad Street Bullies. For years he was working on making a Broad Street Bullies movie, a hockey sports movie that no one wants to see Rob Zombie make. Like, I know that might break some hearts, maybe Rob Zombie's and his agent, but no one else in the world wants to see Rob Zombie make a sports movie. I can't imagine him making a real movie. Maybe he'd be really good at making a real movie. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. So, at any rate, he said that he was talking to his producer, and the way that he came up with the movie 31 was, he was like, I can't get this Broad Street Bullies movie made. I keep running into roadblocks. I bet if I came up with a horror movie off the top of my head, I could make it in about 5 minutes. And then he was like, he just spat out the pitch for 31, and they were like, yeah, let's fund that instead. And I got the impression from the rest of the question and answer session that he didn't really care about making 31. He ultimately just wanted to make a movie and get something, force a creative outlet for himself, which creative and artistic people do. Like, no matter what you want to say about Rob Zombie, whether you think he's a hack or a joke or whatever, he is like an art student at heart, you know what I mean? Like one of those kids that you would see in art school who just wants to create and push and make things, and I think that's who he is and what he does. And I think he just wanted to make something. He just wanted to craft something. He wanted something to work on. Which is fine, because how many directors actually, do exactly that and call it a profession and get paid millions of dollars to do so? And I don't think that Rob Zombie is going to make anywhere near $1 million on this movie. I don't know. I mean, he just made a movie. He made whatever he wanted to make, which is fine, in a sense. I feel like it was really rushed to make. He said it took only 20 days for the movie to get filmed, and that they filmed it all in a factory really quick, going from one scene to another and back to the other scene and back and forth. And sometimes it would be like an actor was filmed just acting against a stand-in or a double, or sometimes no one at all, and then they would splice it together. Granted, this is stuff that happens on a lot of movies, but you definitely got the sense watching this movie that there wasn't that sort of organic, these people are really in the real room and real threat to people all the time, in every shot, in every scene. I don't know. I just felt like it kind of broke down the tension. Like, there wasn't a lot of tension to begin with in this movie. There wasn't a lot of suspense. I just didn't feel very captivated, and I think that all these things kind of added up to make me feel that way. And, I mean, what more can I say about it other than I would rather watch a movie like this than ghost or possession movies. I am bored with Supernatural. I am bored with those things. That's why I would watch 31. Would I recommend this movie? That's a harder question. Who would I recommend it for? People like me, people who like Rob Zombie's movies, people who are really interested in seeing something sort of different in the horror genre. I mean, I can't even say that it's too different, because it felt like Rob Zombie makes a Saw movie, throw in elements of The Purge, and then his, typical killer clown aesthetics. Which, if that sounds good to you, then by all means, see 31. I don't think that every horror fan needs to see it. I don't think that if you already don't like Rob Zombie movies, you're really going to hate 31. If you like Rob Zombie movies, you're going to feel some kind of way, one way or another, about 31. You're either going to like it, you're either going to not like it, but I think the chances are that, you should watch his other movies first, see how you feel about them, and then make your way towards this. Because there's not really a whole lot to recommend here. Not a terrible movie, not by any means. I mean, I say it's not a terrible movie, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there already saying that. I know. What's that guy's name? Squires. He writes on Twitter as @FreddyInSpace. You know who I'm talking about. He's a horror writer, and he wrote oh, this movie's hogwash. He actually used the word hogwash in his tweet, which I thought that they stopped saying hogwash in the 1920s, but apparently 100 years later, here we are, and people still say it. But he was like, 31 is hogwash. It's Rob Zombie jumping the shark, and Sherry Moon Zombie is riding the shark, which is a cool phrase, but ultimately doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because, I mean, you could go back in time and look at any director and say that they had jumped the shark. I mean, didn't Steven Spielberg make that movie in 1942, long before he made Jurassic Park? So if you were like, oh, this Spielberg guy is finished in 1981 or whenever that movie came out, you'd probably look like an idiot 30 years later. Just saying. So I think I still look forward to what Rob Zombie would like to do next, assuming that he actually gets a project that he would like to make and, thinks it out properly and makes a good movie. Because I think he makes just really unique stuff, really fun stuff. But this just wasn't to me. It felt like 10 other crazy torture porn movies all mashed together with a Rob Zombie flair. Which, that's what you can put on the box. That's what you can put on the box. It's like 10 or 12 other horror porn movies all smashed together, and Rob Zombie something. There you go. That's my quote. So check it out if you want to. Hopefully it'll be playing someplace near you soon enough. I really love Rob Zombie regardless. So hopefully you do too? I don't know. Okay. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Jack and Nick Horror Show. Guys, thank you for listening as always. Please drop us an iTunes review if you could. If we could get a couple more nice ones, it would really help our standing and our searchability on the program. Hey, that'd be nice. Also, thank you for listening every week. Thank you, Dread Central, for making people listen to us as well. If you're a new listener who's just joined up, trust me, we're going to have our shit together soon. Jack just needs to kick corporate America in the ass and tell them to stop using him like this, and we'll get back to living large and making episodes, hopefully bi-weekly, maybe someday weekly. Maybe someday we'll be talking about horror movies every week and moving on with a greater project that we've been trying to get off the ground forever. But hey, man, life has been in the way, because bad luck is always a thing. I should put that on a t-shirt, huh? Thanks for listening, everybody. See you again soon.